Once you've figured out this critical part of your SaaS, you can hit over $1 million in ARR in the next 6 months. Want to know how? Keep watching this video. Hi, I'm Udit Goenka, the founder and CEO of PitchGround and FirstSales.io, and in this video, we're going to be talking about ICP. That means Ideal Customer Profiling. So you see, every time I speak with a SaaS founder, they often tell me that everyone is a potential customer. And this is where they make the most common mistake, because they don't really identify who their customers really are. Everyone cannot be your customer. Your customer is someone who would actually make a purchase of your product, and that is something that you have to identify. Now, let's take an example. FirstSales.io is a sales tool. It's an email outreaching tool that helps you to bridge the gap between cold email and hot prospecting. Now, every single company needs sales. That also means that every single company can be a potential customer. But if we start targeting every single customer, the problem is we would end up closing none. The reason behind that is every single potential industry has different use cases. And this is why it's very important to identify that customer of yours that would close the quickest. And in our case, what we decided was to start focusing on digital marketing agencies. Now, why digital marketing agencies? The reason behind that is they sell all of their digital marketing services. The way most of these companies are acquiring leads and is through internet. And again, many of them are using email. So this is why we identified that, hey, let's start with digital marketing agencies as our potential ICP. The sole reason behind is we don't have to sit down and do a lot of explaining in terms of how the product works, but rather why they should be using the product. So the sales cycle is going to reduce massively, and that is the first you need to look for in terms of identifying ICP for your SaaS. Why is it important to understand your ICP? Especially if you're an early stage SaaS company, you need to understand that you do not have the budget to start targeting everyone. Neither you have the team to start focusing on every single potential category of your customers. And this is why it's very important to understand and start focusing on ICP that would close the quickest. Now, this means you have to figure out where and which market and what kind of potential customers are not going to take more than 2 weeks for you to close, or more than 3 weeks for you to close. If you're taking 3 months, 4 months to close a potential customer, then probably you're doing something incredibly wrong. Because if you are going to do that and take that approach, you're going to have and find the cash flow issues into your business. And you want to avoid getting into that situation, because SaaS, we both know, is an expensive affair. It's very costly to develop application, and at the same time, it's also costly to go out there and start figuring out who your customers are and then start selling them and then also retain them. So this is why it's very important to have a full control over your ICP during the early stage of your SaaS building. Now that we have spoken so much about ICP, let's figure out what kind of an ICP is ideal, especially during the early stages of your SaaS business. So here are some of the criteria. Number 1, make sure to identify an ICP that will close the fastest. Number 2, focus on the industry that is already mature, which is an online industry where you do not have to go and sit down and explain what to do with the software, but rather how it can benefit them. And third, and the very important part, ensure that you are focusing on ICPs that is easy to retain, which means that your software is constantly delivering results to them and you can retain them on month-to-month basis, so that you can have a churn of less than 5% on month-on-month basis. Now that you have figured out your ICP, it's time to take the next step and start filtering it out further, which is ICP based on industry, ICP based on team size, and then finally you have to understand which department in that particular company will be your ideal customer when you're reaching out to them. Once you've figured out your industry, it's very important to start focusing on a specific category in that industry. Now again, we go back to firstsales.io and let's take an example once again. So now our digital marketing agencies is still a very large industry for us. So what did we do? We start focusing on lead gen agencies. Now why did we do that? Because it's a lot easier for them to explain and they generate leads all day long. So our product firstsales.io is an absolute perfect fit, and those are the potential users that are continuously signing up with firstsales.io. So this is why it's very important that you figure out that category in that particular industry that would understand the need for the software, and they can adopt your software very rapidly so that it makes your customers' life easier. Now that we have spoken so much about ICP and you have a far better understanding about your potential ICP, you need to avoid the next big mistake, because this is where about 92% of the SaaS companies really fail within the first 3 years, which is again focusing on an horizontal approach. Do not do that. Especially for the first 6 months, you have to ensure that you are strictly keeping a vertical approach for your SaaS, which is identifying the vertical ICPs. Again, I already gave you an example of firstsales.io where we are focusing on digital marketing agencies, but not only just that, we are focusing in lead gen agencies in that digital marketing category, which is where we have started focusing on the vertical approach, and we are just focusing on that particular ICP as of now. And this is where make sure that when you are growing your SaaS initially, and if you want to ensure that you hit that $1 million ARR in the next 6 months, you take this critical vertical focused approach to grow your SaaS. Now that you know everything about ICP, it's finally time for you to start building good successful case studies around your ICP, especially the vertical focused ICP. And once you have gotten those case studies, put it up on your website and then start generating leads, start reaching out and start closing more clients. Fill up your entire pipeline with hot prospects after this using this vertical ICP approach. And I can guarantee you that there is no one stopping you from hitting that $1 million in ARR over the next 6 months. I hope you found this video very helpful, especially if you're an early stage SaaS company. And if you did, make sure to like this particular video. And also if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll be checking up the comments every single day, and I'll ensure that every single of your questions are answered so that you do not have to go through any of the issues and challenges that I did during my journey, and ensure that you are hitting that golden $1 million in ARR over the next 6 months.